Through the ups and downs, we stand tall in this journey of growth. Day by day, through the ups and downs, we stand tall in this journey.
This is exactly it. It did say no this morning, definitely. But I think that would have, again, human error, user error, as they say in IT, user error all day long.
User error, not the tools.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly it.
let's discuss boundaries.
Yes. And what does the word boundary mean to you then, Jules?
It means a picket fence around my house.
You know what? That's exactly what I thought that our boundary. I thought boundaries were kind of before. How do you mean picket fence around your house? Do you mean that metaphorically?
Yeah, it's a metaphor.
But you say that because before I knew about boundaries, I did used to think that it would be just something rigid that had no movement.
And obviously a picket fence around a house is a boundary, but it's not the kind of boundary we're talking about. Do you know?
But I did used to think that it was a boundary to me would be it was just something that you didn't do this or you didn't do that. Not a way that is acceptable for people to speak to you or anything, or a type of. I didn't understand the different types of boundaries, I think.
Yeah. So did you think you had any boundaries when you didn't understand boundaries? Did you think you had any boundaries?
Well, no, I didn't understand. I just thought I didn't think of it in that way at all until I understood what what boundaries meant. When did you start understanding boundaries? How old were you?
Oh gosh, when I was doing my work, my hypnotherapy work, so very grown up in my 20s.
Still in your 20s, whereas I don't think I really understood until later on. I don't think I understood what they were.
You know what? That's not true. It was my 30s because I didn't start this work until late 20s, and it wasn't something I was taught in training. So yeah, in my 30s, I definitely didn't know about boundaries as a child.
No. Because now, do you help your children with their boundaries, to set boundaries, and do they understand boundaries?
Not formally, but I think I'm getting more towards a formal boundary setting than I ever have been. I've never formally set my boundaries. Have you?
Not up until probably the
down.
last. Oh, definitely no. I don't think I have written them down. No,
See,
I definitely haven't written them down.
I've started to link boundaries and values. So I've done quite a lot of values work, and I do values work with clients, and it's all formal. By formal, I mean writing it down, actually having them written there. And I've done quite a bit of that, and defined my own values and helped people define theirs, and redefined mine as my life's changed. And I'm starting to think that it's important to do similar with boundaries. I haven't done it.
No,
and I've
I haven't.
acknowledged.
I kind of know what you do and you don't accept, but whether or not you actually, yeah. And there's so many different types of things in work, in friendships, in relationships. And there's so many different ways of setting them, I suppose, as well, and enforcing.
And I haven't got a kind of process for this yet, but I'm slowly dredging it out of the values process that I do have. And the thing with values is that values they're like behaviors, and they're a compass. There's a great description of values as a compass. So if east is your value, you can always find east, you can always go east, but east isn't inexhaustible. So no matter how far east you go, you never reach it. So it's not like a goal, but it keeps you on this path. So that's the value. And then because of the value, so you might say that you value connection with others, and then there's certain behaviors that will tuck into that value. So asking people questions about themselves, being your authentic self, making eye contact with people, those kind of things will all fall under the bracket of valuing connection with others. So then I think you can do similar with boundaries. So you can have a boundary that keeps you on that same path and is a bracket with different behaviours that fit underneath to support that boundary.
Yeah. And then is there any times that you think that you would accept somebody pushing the boundary? Or do you have levels of going above boundaries or below boundaries, whichever way you want to look at it?
Well, I'm not quite sure because I'm still working on this myself. But yeah, I absolutely have relaxed a boundary. And on the flip side, I've strengthened a boundary, depending on the
And
circumstance.
do you think that's helped your day-to-day life? Like, how does it affect you, like in your, say, mental health?
Well, there's been times when I've relaxed a boundary when I've regretted doing so. There's been times when I've strengthened a boundary and it's made me feel really uncomfortable because it's difficult to enforce. And, you know, I've spoken to you before about living intuitively and working intuitively. And I think that intuition comes into that. With
but if that's okay, if you trust your instincts and your intuition, which I grew up not being able to trust that, so that was something I had to learn as well. Did you have to learn that, or did you how to trust your intuition?
I'm still learning it. Aren't we all still learning it? I mean, there's definitely times when I think I should do something, and I don't do it. Maybe because it's a bit uncomfortable, or I can't be bothered, or I'm a bit lazy, or I think it, but I don't really think it quite enough to do it. And then afterwards, I think I knew I should have done that.
Daily.
Regularly. I knew I should have said that. I knew I should have asked that.
Hindsight.
Yeah, isn't that it? Isn't that
Yeah.
what not following your intuition is? And then following your intuition is every time you have a thought of something, could do something differently, could say something, could not do that, you do it.
Then how do you know? Because if new things you feel uncomfortable doing anyway, don't you? So new things can be quite uncomfortable. Changing directions, even if it's going with your intuition.
Yeah, exactly. They can be uncomfortable.
I don't like being uncomfortable. I like being comfortable. That's why it's so difficult, I think, particularly as you get older, or if you're in a relationship, whether it's a friendship or like a partner relationship, then and you haven't set them before, but now you're like, oh, I don't want to accept that anymore. Then that's quite difficult as well.
Really difficult and confusing, which is why I'm starting to think it's probably a really good idea to have some kind of formal boundaries written out and thought out.
Would you send them out to people that you meet, new people?
Yeah. You know what?
A contract of friendship.
You laugh. It sounds funny. Where did I read about this? I can't remember, and it doesn't matter. But it is really important to make your boundaries clear in a new relationship, whether that's a friendship or a relationship. And I'm trying to think, somebody told me that they set their expectations in friendships right at the beginning. They tell somebody, this is what I expect from a friendship. Not from a basis of and therefore you need to step up and do that, but from a basis of if you can't do that, then probably we're not going to be friends. It was something like loyalty, like commitment to things, and maybe it was like seeing each other at some kind of regularity.
I hadn't thought of doing that.
Not I need to see you monthly, but we need to actually see each other rather than just message each other. Something like that.
Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, that's quite a good idea, actually. Although, do you find that people with less emotional intelligence would not be able to accept that? Therefore, you probably wouldn't, but I suppose therefore that would weed out the ones that you wouldn't want to be friends with.
Yeah.
Because I have different. I don't know. You're the same, or not the same, but perhaps with different groups of friendships for different types of things.
Yeah, different groups of friendships, and I'm a different friend to different friends as well.
Yes. Yeah. What type of friend are you to me then? When you
The
say
best.
like that, are you boxing? Of course you are. So basically, to all your other friends, they're second best. Is that what you're saying?
There's
But
some
what?
people who I seem to be able to make more time for than others.
Yeah, because what? Why is that? I'm going to make assumptions.
Honestly,
Keep doing
it's
that.
probably based on their availability and how much effort they make. So
Mm,
let's take Philippa, because she won't mind me talking about her.
yeah,
Well, she might actually. Maybe she does, and I just don't know. Philippa is my
I'm sure she'll tell you if she knows what her boundaries are.
for the general public. She won't listen to this. That's actually the thing. For the for the general public, Philippa's my best friend who I've known since I was 6 months old, and
You just
I
said
would
that I was your
liken
best.
our no, I said I am the best.
Oh,
I would liken our relationship to sisterly.
yeah.
But she's very, very busy, and I'm very, very
Mm,
busy, and she makes less time to see me than I would make to see her potentially. I mean, that's not fair because she's very good. She'll drive a long way to see me and things like that. But I'm more likely to be the person who drives us meeting up.
mm,
And therefore I don't feel a pressure because she's not asking to meet up and she's not driving meetups. And she's not, as in the motivation, she's not the motivation behind the meetups. I feel no pressure. And
yeah.
so for me, it's important that we do at least see each other, because we could very easily drop into a friendship where we never see each other. It's just on the phone.
Mm.
And so I make an active effort to make sure we have a day out for our birthday each year. We have a day out around Christmas each year. But beyond that, whereas other
And
friends,
is that because she's not doesn't? Do you find location as well is a big thing with friendships, like where they're based, if it's close to you?
no, I find that I actually seem to make more time to see the friends that live further away than the friends who live close by.
Mm,
I mean, I'm thinking of one friend whose name I won't mention, who lives close by, um, and wants to see me a lot more than I have the time to see them.
yeah,
And I think that could be because when I see the friends who live further away, I will take a day out of my time. Like I will book a day
yeah.
off.
Rather than having a couple of hours set in to see someone.
Yeah, a couple of hours in the middle of a working day I find difficult, but a day off
Mm,
I find easier.
yeah. But then I suppose I spent with my best friend Hayley, who won't mind me speaking about her. We spend at least I'd say one day, probably 2 hours on a FaceTime talking and catching up a week.
Yeah.
But I don't see her as much as I used to, whereas I see her all the time when she lives around here. She doesn't live near here anymore. And because she has horses and my dog hates horses, it's really difficult for me to be able to get up there without my dog because it stresses him out. So therefore, but we've got an understanding. She definitely knows that. And if she comes down here, obviously it's difficult for her to get away because of the animals and that kind of thing. But we make time over FaceTime to keep our bond, I suppose,
So would
and
you
not
say
lose
one of
that.
your boundaries then is prioritizing Frank? So if
A
something would make
100%. Yeah.
you if
Yeah.
something would make you sacrifice him,
Mm,
then you would say no to it.
definitely, without even a second thought.
But your picket
I didn't recognise that as a boundary, to be fair.
no, your picket fence is malleable, because
Yeah.
I'm guessing that maybe once a year or something you might work it out so that you can see Hayley.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I do. I do go up there if I can. Yeah. But like Pete will have Frank for me because I'm limited on who can have him. And I will go up there and spend the day up there.
Yeah, so that's
Mm,
a boundary then, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Frank comes with me or I don't come. Or if I do go out, I get back. It's if say I do go out and it's something that I wouldn't necessarily want to spend lots of time at, then I can use Frank as an excuse to come home. Or he is, he is a valid. I don't leave him for a long time. So yeah, I've got a 4-hour window.
Well, that's good. We've worked out a boundary.
I might write that down.
We're halfway there. Yeah.
Have you got a download for this or anything that you could add to the
Yeah. Find my course
tick sheet of how?
So what about, have you been in a situation, because I certainly have, with people who don't respect your boundary,
Yes,
or a boundary,
definitely.
or have you felt that your boundary's been disrespected?
Yeah, definitely. But I think I'm a very direct communicator, so I can come across if somebody does, and I've said to them that I don't particularly like, say, a form of communication, then I will air that. I'd rather do it in person than on messaging, because I think it's be that on a call or in person if you can. But more recently, I suppose that wasn't the case, and I think the person took it quite badly and didn't like my exercising my boundaries. So
yeah, do you think you I'm not very good at this, by the way, so when I'm asking you questions, I'm not saying it from the voice of perfection. Do you think that whilst you feel like you communicated clearly, do you feel like you specified, this is my boundary? And
probably not in that way, no, but I did in the communication that I sent when it had gone too far, perhaps. So yeah, probably not at the beginning. Although there had been times before when I had, but it wasn't listened to.
See,
and I kind of let it slide.
I don't think I'm very good at that, and that's where I think I get unstuck. Although I would say some people don't respect my boundaries and walk all over them, I think it's more, I don't think, there's a couple of people I can think of who I'm not going to mention, but a couple of people who I feel very suffocated by, is the word, who I feel like I assert a need, not that I need something from them, but more that I need them to back off, and it's not respected, and I think what I'm feeling is my boundaries being walked all over. However, what I realise is maybe it's their inability to understand my kind of between the lines communication.
Yeah, I think that's a better explanation of what I was trying to say, to be quite honest. I think that's that it's definitely for me that's a really good suffocation. That is a really, and I'd tried to sort of assert before, and I'm not backwards at coming forwards, and then when it wasn't adhered to on the last attempt, but then maybe that was down to me not clearly communicating in the manner that they would understand.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem that I have, and the reason I think I do it is because I'm feeling fearful of the repercussions of that. I'm trying to be too nice. I'm trying to say something in a too nice a way. And hoping that they'll read between the lines, and they don't read between the lines. And so potentially it's not that person overstepping boundaries, it's my communication.
But then I think some people, and I think you said this to me, it's their emotional intelligence. So perhaps they wouldn't pick up on social cues as much as you or I would. Like, I'm always conscious, like if I send you a million messages, I'm like, oh, I've sent Juliet like 10 messages in one go, I must. But then I think if I send another one saying, sorry, didn't mean to send 10, no need to reply.
Yeah, you're apologetic for being yourself.
Could have been one long message. Didn't have to make it 10. She's going to open a WhatsApp, have a heart attack.
Whereas I never think that, ever.
That's what I worry about when I send messages like that, especially if they're like, can I trauma dump? Or
well, that's respectful, actually,
Or is it? Because you might just be like, well, I can't say no.
Well, I could if I had my boundaries set formally. And this is another thing as well. If you set your boundaries formally in that way, I think it's easier, because this is what I've done some exploration with. If I have my boundaries written on a bit of paper, and then someone asks me to do something, me neither until recently, but someone asks me to do something that is outside of those boundaries or inside of those boundaries, whichever way
Mm. Top or
going,
bottom of the hill.
yeah, quite. If someone asks me to do something that I'm not comfortable with, instead of feeling guilty for saying no, which is what I feel now, and I try to like either go between the lines or do whatever I do, it's simple. Sorry, that's my boundary, and I can't do that, and it's clear. And I
Do
feel
you say
like
it
I
like that
wouldn't have.
though?
I've never done this.
Oh,
I feel like I wouldn't need to feel guilty because it's not a personal thing.
mm.
Do you know what I mean? It's no longer
Yeah.
related to that person. It's and how I'm feeling in that moment. It's looking at my boundary and saying, actually, my boundary says no. Really sorry, can't do that.
Mm. Yeah.
Whereas
I
now, if
think I think it's easier for women as well. Do you think it's easier for? Do you? I don't know. I just think we communicate things better. I was reading. Pete won't mind me talking about this, but he was showing me one of his group texts for. He's got a few, so I won't have to. No, nobody he knows will listen to this anyway. But and it was their community trying to arrange something at the weekend. And you know, like if it was a group chat for girls, it would just be like, right, it would be the communication would be different. And and he was like, and then this, and then he showed me them, and it was like, yep, we'll do this, yep, we'll do that, yep, I can do this, yep, and it was all just really like, whereas it would be like a bit of a longer one, and then and then things got organised. And it was interesting watching them trying to set their dates and things that they can and can't do.
Oh, I think they communicate so differently, don't they?
Mm. Yeah, I think that's it. It's interesting watching his dynamics in his friendship.
Yeah. So do you think then boundaries change? Do boundaries change within a relationship, and then do boundaries change for people?
Yeah, I think I can easily. I think with particularly with my daughter, I think I probably she probably needs to set more boundaries with me than I do with her.
Help her.
Get her on this.
Yeah, she could be a guest.
Could be. She wouldn't. I've already asked her.
Oh.
Not for this, but for something else. But yeah, I don't. I think they can be. I think they. Whether or not, if you set them, is that? Do you have to set them to be like, oh, this is a nice to have, this is a must have, like if I was doing a project plan, or are they going to be? That's movable, because obviously the 4 hour Frank thing is I'm not moving that if I don't have a dog sitter. So that's even if someone's leg fell off, I've got to get back because my dog can't be left for more than 4 hours. That's my role, by the way. I don't think it's necessarily one that everyone stands by.
I've forgotten we were talking about how they might change.
Would you, if you've got any rigid ones that you set specifically then, or do you think you would just set them and then see how it goes with different people or different things?
Yeah, definitely. So I remember listening to Jay Shetty in a podcast or on something, and he was talking about sleep, and he said that I've always spoke about prioritizing things rather than a boundary. So he prioritizes sleep, and he says that if anything is going to interfere with him getting 8 hours sleep a night, he says no to it. And to some extent, I'm a little bit like that. I don't do things that are going to interfere with my exercise routine, and I tend to not do things that are going to interfere with my sleep. However, I definitely bend those. So I can think of times when I've gone for a much earlier run than I would usually go for, so that I can meet someone earlier. There's been the very odd occasion where I've missed exercise because of doing something, but very rarely. Maybe if it's a holiday or weekend away or something. And sometimes I will meet, like I've got one friend who I can think of who is a local friend, and very rarely, maybe once a year, we'll meet for dinner. And that will interfere with my sleep ever so slightly. But I see her once a year. It's important to me to see her. She's someone who I want to keep friends with. And I don't have this sleep, the weekends, it's not a thing, but we tend to go out in the week. So yeah, that's definitely an example of boundaries bending depending on the situation. And then I would question whether that's fair. If you set a boundary, is it fair to people to if I was to tell people my boundary, I don't do things that are going to interfere with my sleep, I don't do things that are going to interfere with my exercise, and then one day I do, is that confusing the boundary? Don't know.
I like to be I like to take Frank out for his last, you know what, I won't say it because he's sitting right near me, at 8:30, and then I go to bed, and I'm in bed by 9 o'clock at the latest, and that is known to literally everyone. I'm like, well, I won't be booking a table at 8 o'clock, probably not going to come because that's far too late for me. But I do make an exception. We go out maybe once a month with Pete's sister, and I will make an exception for that. Like if it's an event, if it's something that I'd want to go to, I'll make an exception for it.
But it isn't like that, is it? Because if she wanted to do that once a week, you probably wouldn't.
No, I probably wouldn't if it was once a week, because it'd be too late. But it depends what time it is. It just, any kind of time leaving him, I don't like leaving Frank for too long. So if I can take him, even better. Then I don't have to sit there being, dog anxiety.
What is the most challenging boundary you've ever had to set?
Most challenging. I tell you what, it was probably this year, and saying no to going away. Won't show Frank. It was probably this year, and saying no to going away because I want to concentrate on working and not going on holiday as such,
Okay.
and leaving Frank, which I did really want to do, but I didn't do, and actually it was last weekend. So, and I did have to say no. I said no.
And
what made boundary around.
What made that challenging?
Because it was something I really wanted to do, and it was something that we'd planned for quite a while, and then it hadn't 100% been arranged. And then when it came to actually sort of booking it, I was like, actually, do you know what? I really do need to, number one, not spend the money, and number two, I've got so much work to do. I don't think I'd be able to even enjoy myself having 5 days or 4 days away at this point in time.
Yeah. So what made it difficult? The fact that you wanted to do it?
Yeah, the fact that I wanted to do it, and I felt like I was letting my friend down as well, because I was.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And did you manage to explain that in a way to your friend?
Oh, yeah, I think she did. I think she did understand. She might listen to this, so I hope she does anyway. But yeah, so I think she did. She definitely did understand. But she was sending me pictures at the weekend, just saying like, "Wish you were here" and stuff. So that was pretty. But it was, But it was. I definitely did the right thing for me, and I'd like to have gone, but it just really wasn't the right sort of time for me, to be fair. So that was a difficult boundary to set, or a difficult one to communicate.
And would you say that was a boundary with yourself or a boundary with someone else?
I think it was a boundary with myself, because had it been properly booked 6 months ago when we first started talking about it, I'd have just gone, because I'd just been like, oh, it's booked now. Whereas it hadn't properly been booked, so I did.
So bringing it back to values again, but actually the reason that you had that boundary was because if you'd have not done what you did, you'd have been living out of alignment with your values.
Although I really did want to go,
but your
I
values
would have just been constantly thinking,
Frank and work.
Yeah,
they're your values, and so you had to say no.
And currently, I just think, but I think those will change I'm hoping, in say a year's time. It's not a set boundary that I'll be sticking to for good. But even when I went away earlier on in the year, and then that might be, I went away in September with Pete, with Frank as well, and but I did work the whole time that I was there. Like in the afternoons, I'd be working, but that was my choice, so that I could still go away. And I did still enjoy myself, and then I came home and had the flu for nearly 3 weeks. So what was that
you
telling me?
learnt that lesson, didn't you?
So yeah. But mine's definitely I need to set boundaries. Is there any boundaries that you need to set with yourself
I think
rather
I
than
need
other
to
people?
just get them on paper. No,
Mm.
I think I have very strict boundaries with myself, but I don't have them on paper, so I don't really know what they are.
I don't have them on paper, and it's only this conversation's made me even think about putting boundaries on paper.
I think I need to, and I think I need to work out what my boundaries are with other people as well, and learn how to communicate that, because I think my biggest barrier to boundaries right now is communication.
Are you scared of communicating your boundaries? Are you fearful of upsetting people, or is it more
Yeah,
you're unclear on what they are and how to communicate that in a way that's not going to upset someone? Or
I think I'm probably unclear for a start. I
Mm.
think that I probably feel like my boundaries are personal, except they're probably not. So when I say yes to someone who lives an hour drive away, and I'm going for an hour walk, and then so I'm driving an hour, going for an hour walk, driving an hour back, and it's kind of taking out my whole day. And I might
Mm.
even get Matt to be at home, away from, like, working from home to look after the kids. When I say yes to that, and then another friend who lives down the road asks me if I can meet them for coffee, which will be 20-minute drive, an hour coffee, and 20-minute drive back, and I say no, I don't have time. I'm, I haven't got any free time in my diary. That feels really uncomfortable. I feel like I'm making that's personal, that's dependent on the person. I don't think it is.
Mm.
I think probably there's an underlying value or boundary or something with that I need to work out. But because I think it seems personal, I think I'm uncomfortable then saying no. I do say no, but
And
there's a
how does that? Do you get
discomfort with
any?
that.
And are you uncomfortable because what's the response that you get when you do?
Um, yeah, not great, perhaps. Perhaps
Mm.
that's part of it as well. Perhaps when I say no to certain people, there's a kind of like a strong disappointment or a comment. I did get asked by
Do
someone
you
the other
reply
day.
back? Do you reply back to them though if they comment something? Just say and explain yourself, or do you feel like you should explain yourself? Or
I explain myself, but what I realised is I'm not carving out time for certain people,
Mm.
whereas other people I will carve out time for. But I still don't think it's personal necessarily. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it's what I get from it as well. Perhaps there's
Mm.
certain relationships I'm in, where I'm in the relationship not necessarily for pure joy when I'm with that person. Maybe there's another reason, not a selfish reason or anything
Mm.
like that, but maybe it's longevity or something that makes me feel that the relationship is worth having,
Mm.
but I don't necessarily get the pleasure from hanging out as I do
Yeah.
from another friendship. And so perhaps that's part of it. I'm more willing to carve time out for the things that really serve me than
Mm.
the things I'm doing more just to maintain the relationship.
Yeah. See, I have friends as well that I haven't seen. Like, I've got one of my oldest friends that I've known since I was 6 years old, who lives probably a 10-minute walk away from me, and we just bump into each other. Oh, we must catch up, and then we'll catch up, and like it's like it'll go. But it's like we saw each other the other. There's no animosity. There's no
Yeah,
anything like that, and it's not like we've fallen out or we just kind of we'll drift in and out. But I love spending time with her. I absolutely love it.
yeah. But maybe it wouldn't be
And
so
we've
great if it was every day, every
Yeah,
week.
yeah, yeah. That's maybe that's the case. Yeah, I don't feel like I need to set any boundaries with her though. It's
No.
interesting, isn't it?
Well,
Well,
that's
you don't
because
see if you don't sin.
she's not
Yeah,
pushing you to do things that you don't
mm.
feel comfortable with.
Yeah. I probably more push her to see her because I worry about her. So I think I probably more will sort of push her like, "Are you okay?" And I know she gets overwhelmed with WhatsApps and things like that. So I just like, no need to reply, just checking in, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But I suppose I'll be the one pushing.
And
maybe I'm pushing her boundaries. Maybe I need to speak to her about that.
well, that's
Could be,
interesting, isn't
couldn't
it,
I?
as well? Because we all have totally different boundaries. So whilst someone's pushing yours, you're pushing someone else's, but you don't necessarily feel like you're pushing theirs because you're not asking for anything more than you're asking from someone else who's not giving you what you know.
Minefield. It's a minefield, a boundary minefield.
Yeah, isn't it just?
How do you know? But I think it's all in the communication, and I definitely do think that I'm quite blunt, I suppose, with it. If somebody annoys me, I'll tell them, and I won't. But perhaps my delivery could be better if I'd communicated things earlier.
And is someone annoying you related to boundaries, or is it just they've annoyed you? And then is it you? Are you the?
Yeah.
No one can make you feel anything that you don't.
I know. Well, yeah. Like Sean.
Sure, exactly.
I will name him.
Who gave you a bad day by a badly worded email that you let him take over your body.
Like an alien.
Yeah. You became possessed by Sean yesterday.
Seething.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then But then you set yourself boundaries when it comes to technology and reading, say, I know some people that will only read emails in the evening, particularly if, say, I'm in a contract in corporate, I will set specific times in my day to do things, but I'm not like that in my business.
Right. So your boundary is with someone else asking something from you. You will respond to it in a set period of time.
Yeah.
You have. When it's you doing it for yourself,
I don't. I'm just
there's no time limit. Yeah, I used to be more like that. I used to work whenever I had free time. So when a client came and sat in front of me, if they wanted an appointment next week, I'd look at my diary and just put them in anywhere that I could find a slot in my day. Also, my work, the administration side of it, I would do whenever I could. When if the kids went to sleep, I'd do it then. Like, when they were little, if it was daytime nap. As soon as they went to bed, I'd sit on the computer and I'd kind of almost work until I decided that I didn't want to work anymore. So it would be on a laptop. We'd be sat in front of the TV. I'd be working, probably more so because I find my work more interesting than the TV. But I'd be doing that, and then it would get to a certain time, and it would be like maybe the baby would wake up or something, and that would be my signal to shut the laptop and go to bed. But then it was in COVID actually where we needed a family kind of timetable. Because Matt and I were both trying to work and the children were there, and we needed okay, you can work at these times and I'll work at these times, and I created this structure of when I worked, and that's carried on. And so now I have work times in the diary. It's really clear. I've got an online booking system and clients can book during those times. During those times, Matt's on childcare, and the admin side of things I'll only do in the morning now, so I'll get up at 5 and I'll work until 8.
And is that down to, because I try and base things on my energy levels as well. Like, I'm better at getting high energy tasks done first thing in the morning, and then my things, I like writing things and but later on in the afternoon, maybe like more creative things. Do you set your times like that as well, or do you just have, I do this then and I do that then? Or do you set it around?
My ancestry did tell me that I am a morning person.
Oh.
I don't know I think I probably am. I do prefer getting up early and going to bed early. And so I won't work in the evening unless there's something really, like there's really something, there's a real deadline or something, and I see clients in the evening. But once I finish with clients, I will not. And do you know what's helped that actually? The laptop broke. So we had a MacBook and it broke. Well, in fact, we had laptops before that and they all broke. And then we got a Chromebook to replace it, which is terrible and
Yeah, I had
is
one of those.
basically not usable. And so I have a computer which a Windows desktop computer which I love, but it's in the office. So if I'm on the computer, I'm away from the family. And so I now will not do that thing where I sit on the sofa and open up the laptop. And I think that's really helped. I have to actually come into the office to work, and I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah. I bring my office downstairs so that I can sit down. Whereas like I am now. And then I'll go up to my office. But then I like to, if Sean's working from home, I like to be with her down here.
I mean, it's.
But I suppose that is a good boundary, isn't it, for you to set for that?
It's a good boundary for me.
Work boundary, yeah. Yeah, I think that works really well, Juliet. I think that works really well.
But it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody.
Take what works for you and leave what doesn't.
Yes, that's exactly it.
On that note, should we?
Time out. Or what is okay? Well, let's leave it on. What is one boundary you'd like to work on improving now?
I don't think I want to work on improving a boundary. I think I want to understand my own boundaries. I want to have them written down, and I want to learn how to communicate them better. Yeah,
I think that's exactly what I should do as well. I think that's what I will do.
Let's do it.
Grow together, we'll grow.